Greetings, brothers and sisters. FBI report confirms Alec Baldwin pulled the trigger in fatal rush set shooting. I covered this yesterday, right? But now it's making the rounds. The report came out, but now it's being covered. And, he said the trigger wasn't pulled. I covered this yesterday. But now he's a liar, right? He lied in the interview. And that doesn't bode well. There's going to be at least some financial settlement involved. And Alec isn't saying anything, right? He still has this thing from yesterday about Ann Heesh. But one of my viewers sent me this from a local news station.
Since the start of this investigation, many people have been quick to blame Reed, even criticizing her. Yet this new report found she was actually following firearm safety protocols, but it was a different story for the company. Hannah Gutierrez Reed was in charge of securing guns on the set of Rust. She was often called
In terms of blame.
young and inexperienced.
So I'm going to show you a little bit of her interview with the police. And they've been trying to pin this thing on her and her being young, too young for the job, but they're the ones who hired her. Like Alec was one of the producers. And it was a low-budget movie, so they hired an inexperienced armorer. So after a lengthy discussion with the police, where they say she can have an attorney present, and she says, I want an attorney, how long will it take? Well, I don't want to do that. And then she says, all right, go ahead, ask me some basic questions. And the basic questions are here.
You and Sarah, what's her last name, do you know?
Sarah's last name, I don't think she really worked with that gun that day, by the way. But Sarah Zachary, Zachry.
Okay. But she was there today with you, helping you today, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So you and Sarah, who has access to that? So when you got there this morning, where are the guns kept?
The guns are kept on the prop truck.
On the prop truck? And
Yeah, and
The prop truck. They got guns in the prop truck.
dummies and everything kept on the prop truck.
are the dummy rounds separate, contained than the gun, all
Yeah.
in the truck?
Yeah, they're in their own box, and the guns are in the safe.
Okay. And who has access to the safe?
Sarah and I.
Just the two of you?
Yes.
What about the dummy rounds? Who has access to that?
Well, the dummy rounds, they were on the
Speaking of dummy rounds.
cart for lunch. Yeah, the dummy rounds were on the cart for lunch. All the ammo was on the cart for lunch.
Is there, okay, so you're saying dummy rounds and ammo, are there two separate things?
So there's blanks, my bad, not ammo, but there's blanks, the blanks look different.
Okay.
They shoot the stuff, and the dummies normally just have a little BB in them.
Okay.
See, would you trust this person with your life, right? Now, she might be capable later on, but she seems younger than 25, and she's, in a court situation here. She made a bad decision by not getting an attorney and just talking, and she makes a few mistakes, even what I saw. I didn't watch the whole thing, that she's not helping her case. But they hired this young person, and young people are much more reckless than older people for the most part, right? You become more cautious and more conservative as you get older because you're more aware of your fragility. You feel more indestructible when you're younger and you haven't experienced life and life's consequences. And so people who are younger just don't have, some people are very careful when they're young and they remain so when they're older. They're more responsible. But most young people, you have more an adventurous spirit. You take more risks, and you're less, thoughtful and wise about your decisions. And so a 25-year-old kid, a young person, she seems a little bit dopey, right? A little bit nonchalant with her answers here and all of it. And you can't expect them to really understand the gravity of the situation in terms of the handling of the firearms on a movie set. And they did this because the movie was a low-budget movie. Alec Baldwin was producing it. He was one of the producers. and they couldn't pay the staff, right? The staff was ready to walk out because they weren't able to pay them. They said there were safety concerns, and that's why this happened, right? If they hired an established armorer, someone who was a professional and took the job seriously, this would never happen. This was a low-budget movie because Alec is no longer a star. He's making lots of low-budget stuff, and this is the consequence, right? And a lot of his low-budget, he made a movie called Pixie, which takes place in Ireland, and he plays a gun-wielding priest. And he's making these low-budget B movies that have a lot of gunplay and not a lot of budget, right? And that's why this happened, right? And her part in this, even though it seems like she might even be completely cleared by what she's saying here, and, you know, Alec is lying about various things already. And we'll see how this plays out. But the producers that hired somebody, you know, if you hired somebody who had a double-digit IQ or was a crazy person or an alcoholic drug dealer or a, drug user, and they behaved unsafely and someone got hurt because they were really not up to the job, wouldn't it be the fault of the people that hired the person, right? And so by hiring a young person like this, because of your budgetary concerns, then, you know, you're culpable. You should be culpable.
What is the purpose for the dummy rounds? Because you were loading those up this morning.
So the dummy rounds, they're meant to put in like the belts of the cowboys and everything, and like in the
And everything like that, and such as?
revolver you can see if it's empty or not.
Right.
So yeah, I have.
So then there was this.
Rounds are just for show to make it look
Just
it's
for
full.
show, yeah. Mhm.
Okay. But then the other rounds that you guys
The other
keep on
rounds,
seeing,
yeah, the other
shoot a
rounds,
BB.
yeah. They don't shoot a BB, no.
Oh.
No, they just shoot, like, they just open up and a little black powder comes out, and that's all. It's just a little black powder, and, yeah.
Is there live ammo that's kept on set?
No, never.
Okay.
So no live ammo kept on set, but they said there is. So what happened? How did live ammo get on there? She says there's none. There should be none. A live bullet was fired. Who put the bullet in the gun?
Yeah.
Is there live ammo that's kept on set?
No, never.
Okay.
so
I hardly even go shooting with .45 ammo at all. I normally just use .22.
Like, why would she volunteer that? Like, they're just so stupid. Her and Alec. She could have had a lawyer with her, and they asked, is there any live ammo on there? She goes, no. And she goes, oh, I hardly go shooting with that kind of ammo anyway. I usually use a .22. Implying that it would be her ammo that she'd be bringing on set. That she would be bringing live rounds on set to go shooting by herself. Oh, I hardly shoot that type of ammo. So what are you talking about? So you brought .22? You brought .22 caliber rounds on the set? Is that what you're saying, right? Like, why are you talking?
so
I hardly even go shooting with .45 ammo at all. I normally just use .22.
All right, there you go. Scratch your head like Alex.
So,
and so you got the guns this morning. You and Sarah are the only ones who have. Is it a combination for the safe?
it is, yeah.
Okay, and you guys are the only ones who have that combination.
Mhm.
Okay, but the rounds are.
They're in the truck, yeah. The truck gets pretty much locked up every night. I mean, not like padlocked, but just on set.
So the dummy rounds that they have are supposed to look like real bullets, right? So that's the problem here. And she says it here kind of in a dopey way.
And to make them still look like your dummy rounds.
Well, so that's the thing is that, like, bullets, like real bullets, pretty much look the same as
Mhm.
dummies. The only difference is the rattle. And so, yeah,
See, Alex said the gun was supposed to be completely empty because they weren't needing props. They didn't need a dummy rounds in the gun. So I don't even understand what this part of the interview is about. And, he had said that the gun was empty, but now they're saying it was loaded with dummy rounds, which easily could have been live bullets. You'd have to shake them and hear a rattle to know that there was dummy and not a live round, right? So you understand what's being said here, that the dummy rounds and the live ammo bullets, regular bullets, look the same. You really can't tell the difference. There's a rattle to the dummy rounds. So if you shake them, yeah. But other than that, if they're live rounds, or you think there's no live rounds, which she said that she didn't think there was any live rounds, definitely no live rounds, but there were live rounds. So whoever brought live rounds in, now if you don't think they're live rounds, then you think everything's going to be a dummy, right? As opposed to the blanks and things are used to create the sound of a bullet, right? And so if you didn't think there's any live rounds, you're going to put anything in there and think it's a dummy. But if you have live rounds mixed in with dummies, then some of those live rounds are going to make it into the gun, right? And so whoever brought those live rounds in, it could be anybody. I mean, that person is at least, guilty of, I would say, manslaughter, right? Because they're introducing something into the environment that people don't expect to be there. So here's the part about Alec.
They were already loaded from before lunch. And
Okay.
so that's the thing is like,
So she and some other girl, loaded them with dummy rounds. They were rounds that look like live rounds but aren't, don't have gunpowder in them. They don't fire. And so they're just there to be props. And she loaded the guns with the dummy rounds, and they locked them back up in the safe that only she and the other girl had the combination to. And then they went to lunch, and they got the guns out to be used by Alec and his now dead cinematographer.
we had that gun the whole time before that, and nothing happened, and I wasn't in there, and they weren't supposed to be even pulling the hammer back.
So, okay.
They weren't even supposed to be pulling the hammer back. So there wasn't any reason to cock the gun and fire it or any of that.
All right, let me just clarify a little bit. So prior to lunch, the guns, you had them out.
Yeah.
And where were they when they were out?
They were inside with all the camera crew and everything. It's, COVID, everything happening right now. They don't really like a lot of people in there.
Okay.
And so usually I'm hardly allowed in there unless there's actual firing happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you inside this morning?
She slaps her mask back on.
I walked in there and I handed the gun to Alex a couple of times, and Alec took it, and everyone was there with him.
Alec?
Alec.
Okay.
Baldwin, yeah.
She handed the gun to Alec. He said somebody else handed it to her.
Baldwin?
To her.
Okay, so you handed him the gun this
Yeah.
morning. Does he pass it off to anybody, or were you able to see that?
At one point, Dave had it, the assistant director, but he was just sitting in with it, and then I saw him, and I was like, okay, this is fine. He's just sitting in, and then I walked out, and yeah,
And how do you know that Dave had it?
I handed it off to Dave while he was sitting in for the shot.
Okay.
So I think it's this guy Dave that Alex said he got the gun from.
All right, so you guys were the only three handlers prior to lunch?
Alec, Dave, me. Dave was after lunch.
Okay.
Dave was after lunch. Yeah, that should have been the only ones. Maybe Sarah possibly, but yeah. Because
Did
that's
you
the thing,
any-
they chill on our little table, and we're pretty much there all the time.
So this thing goes on forever, and her story differs quite substantially from Alex. But I don't know if Alex is going to jail, but he's gonna, right now the fact that he lied about the trigger, that sucks for him, right? On just a reputation and brand level, but also there's going to be some financial settlement. We'll see that in the future. I've always doubted he would go to jail, and then maybe anybody else. But this young woman is clearly put in a position. Maybe she has some training. Maybe she's, has some experience with firearms. But she's too young and dopey. I mean, I would never. Would you go to a gun range with this person and have them be responsible for some safety? Right? You wouldn't. She's too young, and she doesn't have that kind of personality either. Like sometimes young people have very, they're just very detail oriented. Some people just get that at an earlier age. They're OCD or something, and they really take things like safety seriously. But most young people don't, and she doesn't, right? And why would you hire this person? Because you have a bad movie with a low budget, and most of it's going to go to Alec. And somebody introduced live rounds into the environment, and they weren't, it wasn't a safe environment, a meticulous environment, and those live rounds got mixed in with the dummy rounds. I mean, that's what it sounds like. And, that made it very easy for this to happen. And so I don't blame her, but they should never hired her. Like, she shouldn't have done this job because of, the risk that's involved and what ended up ultimately happening. And the rumors around the Rust set was that it was just a mess, right? Disorganized, unsafe, people not getting paid. I mean, just a disaster. Britney J. Spears here. Who dat? I have no idea. Just kidding. He's the love of my life. The most honest, humble, and genuine man I've ever met. I'm so proud that you love what you do. What does he do? And that I can be a part of your life. Psst, my husband. There he is, giving the hearts. That's the picture of him. And there's his Instagram. I don't know. What's it say? He's an actor. Okay. What is he been? And he has to act all the time like Britney isn't crazy. And so, one of my viewers brought Glen Close back to my attention. She has a lot of weird posts. Here's one. She likes to make faces. She has some kind of personality disorder. And then she does that a lot where she goes from a weird face to a smile.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning, George W. Bush. She looks a lot like George W. Bush.
This is what I'm thinking about today. I want to try to put it a little bit in words.
No, don't do words. Do something else. Like, why words?
It was in April of 1989. Annie was 1 year old. And I decided that the first big political thing I would ever do in my life would be to go down to Washington and to add my presence to the big Women's March on Washington.
Exactly. This dude is joining with the women marching on Washington.
Pro-choice.
Pro-choice. So it's pro-choice thing.
I was uncomfortable with anything political, but I had just become a mother. And
as soon as you become a mother, the first thing you want to think about is, let's not get rid of abortions. Let's make sure we can not do this again.
I was changed into somebody who cared about the future for my daughter. And
so you just became a mother. And the experience of having a baby grow inside you and then giving birth to a baby made you want to make abortions legal or keep abortions legal. I mean, that's kind of weird, right? You understand that? Like, the opposite effect should be there, maybe. How precious life is.
So I put her pacifier on a string around my neck. And before I went, I called all the women in my family asking them if I could represent them in this protest. And at the time, my brother was married to someone who said no, she did not want me to represent her. And we had not really talked about it generally in our family, and that was a shock to me, but I
Exactly. Why would somebody have that point of view?
I got it. You know, we live in a democracy. We live in a country where you have freedom of choice. Not just about whether you're going to have an abortion or not. but how you're going to live your life, how you're going to worship, where you're going to live.
Okay. So that's Glenn Close. It just, she's getting a little too close to the camera here. So then there's these. Thanks, Glenn. All right. Rosie O'Donnell called and she wants her eyeglasses back. So speaking of George W. Bush, Justin Sylvester pushes Jenna Bush Hager away after he gets too close. It's from yesterday. I didn't get yesterday. So she's patting him on the back, getting close, getting touchy with him.
No, this ain't no Paula Patton.
By the way, he's good at a lot of things.
So he doesn't like that. She's grabs him on the side. He shrugs his shoulder.
This sounds good. Okay, and then
She's got her hand on his back.
we're gonna make the glaze. So the glaze is just 3
And he's like, back up, biatch, right?
ingredients. It's just some.
Where's and she's weird, and we showed her with her mom, and it wasn't me, Ganny.
All right, that was fun. And you know what? This is a flash forward to what I'm going to look like in my golden years.
Jenna.
I have to ask, does your grandmother know you dressed up this way today?
Well, she may know.
Willie, I'm glad you mentioned
What?
that because we just happened to have someone
Look at her. She's freaking out.
who is joining us right now.
Danny!
First Lady Barbara Bush, Mrs. Bush, good morning. What do you think of our costumes and your granddaughter's likeness? Good morning.
morning.
What do you think?
Well, I heard she was going to dress up like a witch, so I did too.
I didn't say that, Ganny. I didn't say that. That was Matt.
Look at her. She's all freaking out here. All crazy. Come on, Ganny. I didn't say you were a witch, Ganny. Don't lock me in the basement again, Ganny. Come on, Ganny. I'll be a good girl, Ganny. Don't eat me, Ganny. Come on, Ganny. I don't want to be eaten, Ganny. It was Matt, Ganny. Go eat Matt. Matt's going to be me too anyway. Eat Matt. Right, I showed you that. And she had a weird interview with Michelle Obama. Just a very strange person. Scary, even. And she's stalking this dude.
Vinegar.
Okay, so apparently he denied that he was trying to push her away, but we all saw it. May we all have the patience of Sting's listening to his own songs be murdered in front of him.
Every game you play, every night you stay, I'll be watching you.
This is great. One of my viewers sent me this. So this is Sting. They must be honoring him somewhere, one of these honor shows. And they got the worst singers, and they're just butchering his songs.
Oh, can't you see? Oh, you belong to me.
Absolutely wonderful, right? Look at his wife. His wife's like, are you kidding me? Who are these guys?
There's two boats and hold.
Drum solo. Somebody do a drum solo. This is why it would suck to be famous, because you got to sit there. The cameras are on you, and you can't be genuine or authentic. You can't show how you really feel about their disrespecting your entire career by putting some hacks up there to butcher your music. Anyways, only spirituality will save this M&F-ing world. It's Paul Romano definitely reporting from the apocalypse, laughs, and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.